And now it's Deborah Cobelt Live and the Little Italy podcast.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on our Little Italy podcast and Deborah Cobelt Live. I'm your host, Deborah Zara Cobelt, and I'm thrilled and honored to welcome our guest, Johnny Mandolin Anello, the founder of Italian American Radio. Johnny is also a very accomplished musician. He's appeared on many soundtracks for television and film. He performs live at many restaurants and cafes throughout New York City and beyond. And in New York City, particularly in the Little Italy section of New York, which we're going to talk a lot about actually on our program. And Johnny also has opened multiple years at the San Gennaro Festival in New York. And this year he's also going to be appearing and performing in the festival in September. We've got a lot to talk about. So thank you so much, Johnny, for joining us.
It is such a pleasure to be here. I have to tell you that this is really a fun experience for me. It's my first real video experience. I've interviewed hundreds of times on the radio, and usually I'm the one doing the interviewing, not the interviewee. But it's such a pleasure. I'm really excited.
Now, I'm thrilled to have you, and I have to tell you, the tables were turned on me last month, and I wasn't used to it. I'm like, wait a minute. I have to answer about me, because I know you said you wanted to maybe interview me one of these days, and I thought,
Yes.
oh. But I know what you mean. Sometimes when the tables are turned, it's like, oops, what are they going to say? But I'll be easy on you, Johnny. I'll be easy. How's that?
Thank you. Perfecto.
Let's talk a little bit about you and Italian American Radio. How can people find it? What is it? What do you have on it?
Okay, well, Italian American Radio is easy to find because you just go to the website, italianamericanradio.com, and right under the logo, it says, click here to listen live. Italian American Radio is not a podcast. You don't download it. It's a live radio station broadcasting 24 hours a day, but instead of over the air, it's over the internet. And it broadcasts at any hour, many shows, many hosts, and it's really a radio station for Italian Americans, focused on Italian Americans and all things Italian. So we have talk, music, comedy, history, heritage, food, everything, but it's really a focus of the Italian American experience. I'm trying to memorialize that and pay it tribute because that's how I grew up. I grew up in an Italian American home in an Italian American neighborhood, and for a while there, when I was young, I didn't know there weren't any non-Italians.
I know.
So it was an immersive experience, and it's sadly is being forgotten or not passed on to the younger generation. And there's a lot of customs, traditions, language, even if you don't speak Italian language thrown in, like I said, traditions and things we do, everything from the way we believe and the way we interact with our elders and respect to Sunday pasta, which I still do every Sunday, even if it's only me. And and I try to bring the radio station focuses on all things Italian. Now, people say, well, do you have to be Italian to be on it? No, not at all. You just got to love everything Italian. And we do. We have people who are mostly Italian, but love food, fashion, music, talk, and most recently, some serious politics about Little Italy, as you know, in New York. And so we're all over that too. And so
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to have someone like you who is a professional broadcaster, an award winner, and Italian American involved.
No, I'm absolutely thrilled. And anything I can do to promote our culture is everything to me. In fact, I was away. We were away on a vacation. And when this happened, and in particular, I'm talking about Little Italy section of New York being sort of omitted, if you will, from the map of immigrants in New York, my husband said, you got to work next week. And I'm like, can it wait a week? And he goes, no, because this is important. Little by little, as you said, the generations, it's sort of whittling away a little bit in terms of our historical significance. And we have to make sure that we keep it. We have to make sure we keep our neighborhoods. We have to make sure that we keep many of the traditions alive, and there are many of them. However we celebrate, right? That matters, because that's when things start to disappear. So when Italians gathered together, not happy about the fact that Little Italy was omitted from the immigrant nap in New York. What did they do? They peacefully gathered and they were very vocal and said, "We're not standing for this," to the point where the mayor stood up and said, "Okay."
Yeah.
And I'm proud of our people for doing that. What do you say?
Oh, absolutely. And it really brought the Italian Americans together, who are
Yeah.
usually a very respectful and quiet population. And they said, wait a minute. And can you imagine, like, if they did an ethnic neighborhood in Los Angeles and left out uh, Hispanics, or for example, in Little Saigon, the Vietnamese or the Koreans, and they just left their whole neighborhood out, especially Little Italy, a 120-year-old neighborhood that's been there and launched many lives, many businesses, and still to this day, like you mentioned, the San Gennaro feast, that's the biggest Italian American feast in the United States, and thousands of Italians return there to celebrate both their heritage and their family who might have been there or the contribution that it made. And so it was just really, I don't know if it was an oversight or it was intentional. I'm not going to basically try and figure that one out. I just know that it was ignorant, it was insulting, and it's inexcusable. And you can't do that. I can't imagine them doing an ethnic map of New York and leaving out East Harlem for the Latinos or Chinatown. And both of those are in that map, but they left out Italian Little Italy. And so we're not going to stand for that. And again, that's why part of the reason why Italian American radio exists. It's a voice of the Italian Americans. There's plenty of Spanish stations and there's Chinese language stations. I saw an Arab station. That's all great. But you know what? We have our Italian American heritage and we're getting that message out.
Yeah, and it got out. Talk to me a little bit about the history of Little Italy that rings home to you. When you think of Little Italy, New York, and our people who came through Ellis Island primarily and settled there, what stories ring true to you when you think about it?
Well, I have historical stories and personal stories, and part of that is that when the Italians came, a lot of them, of course, didn't speak the language. There was a tremendous amount of prejudice. I have over 100 specimens, examples of Italian racism, Italian American racism, everything from Italians need not apply to cartoons in New York newspapers showing Italian Americans as in terrible light to the pictures of the concentration camp in Montana in World War II that
Yeah,
Italian Americans were sent to. So, it's easy to like forget, oh, that was then, but that could be now. And when, they lynched 11 Italian Americans in New Orleans. So
right.
these are things we have to remember. And Little Italy was kind of the center point. It was the beacon from where so many families came, lived, and left. And there's still many Italian Americans who still live there, whose family lived there. A very good friend of mine, who a lot of people know, Ernie Rossi, he owns E. Rossi and Company, which is a store, like an Italian, product store on 193 Grand Street in Little Italy. It's been there since 1910.
Yeah.
And
Incredible.
yeah,
Incredible. And history is history, whether it is Little Italy. A lot of the argument was, well, there's not many Italians down there anymore. First of all, it's not true. There's plenty of Italians in Little Italy. Go walk it yourself, you'll see them. And it's like, I said to someone else, it's almost like going to Philadelphia and saying, well, George Washington isn't walking the streets here anymore. What a ridiculous thing to say that there aren't as many Italians. It's called history, and history always has to be recognized. And in this case, as I said, we stood up, we spoke, we were heard, and apparently Little Italy will be back on the map. Do we have any idea when that might happen?
I don't know. A lot of the people in New York now in the government, they're highly paid government assistants who basically control a lot of what is said. I don't know when
Right.
they're actually going to get, uh, you know, uh, kicked in the butt to get it on, but hopefully it will be presented. I mean, it was just, I, I thought it was, of course, incorrect, but I thought the thing that really bothered me was the disrespect,
Yeah.
especially in a 120 plus year old neighborhood where it literally, I mean, the Italians pretty much built a lot of New York. The subways, when you go to New York and you see the beautiful marble columns, when you see the some of the architecture, Italians, when they came, they were treated as laborers, but they were really craftsmen. And
Yeah.
some of that marble that the Italians brought over can't be duplicated, and their craftsmanship. And the other thing too is that the Italian American immigrant experience was not beautiful. I mean, people try to romanticize it. It was tough. You had two, three families living in one apartment, trying to scrounge up as much food as they can. I've heard people say, yeah, well, in Italy, pasta is just a side dish, and in America, it's a whole plate. Well, that was live or die. That was eat or die. So, that's one of the reasons why that's still there, why Italian American restaurants serve that, because that was how we lived. And I remember stories hanging out with my grandparents that they would tell me. I mean, there were times Italian would go to work for someone, and at the end of the week or the end of the month, they'd say, "Oh, we don't have enough money to pay you." And who are they going to
Yeah.
go to? I mean, the police couldn't care less. So, it was there was a lot of looking for ourselves. There was a gentleman who started Banco Stabile, which was an Italian bank who would help the Italians invest money and send money back to Italy and take care of their money because the American banks wouldn't. And there were many stories of Italians who had to basically endure a lot. I mean, they were in these little apartments because they had to be. And as they became successful, there was no welfare, there was no government handouts, there was no free hotel rooms. There was you go out and work for it, or you're homeless. And so the Italians had to make their own bones basically in creating this. And to this day, it's remembered. And I know I pass my customs and my beliefs and my upbringing to many people, everybody I meet, Italian and non-Italian. I have a beautiful daughter, Marie Anello, who's an opera singer, who
Mm.
I passed it on to her from the time she was very little. She was 3 and 4 and 5 years old, and she was in the kitchen helping me cook and learning the recipes, and she knows them all now. And speaking our fractured Italian Sicilian, and she knows that too. Well, she speaks much better Italian because she's an opera singer, so she studied it. I just speak the family Italian I learned from my grandfather off the boat. But still, it's passing that on and celebrating your Italian Americanism in America is so important. And I'm not saying that it should negate any other culture because
No.
culture is important, but it should also not be ignored, erased, and for political correctness.
Look, I think there's going to be a great surge now in Little Italy. I think, from what I understand, there's lines out the door to many of the restaurants there. I mean, it's sort of put it back on the map. If for whatever reason you sort of forgot about it and didn't go
Yeah.
visit, you're going to go now. And now that it's going to be on the map, you're especially going to go now. I'd love to see sort of a resurgence in Little Italy because I know it has gotten smaller, and how great it would be for some younger generations to go, this place is kind of cool. I want to move back here. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, and it's happening little by little. There are
Oh,
Young Italian American couples and families moving in when they can. Unfortunately, when I was a kid, our rent was $60 a month. Now it's 6,000 a month. So
yeah.
you do have that issue, it's gentrified. But on the other hand, there still are a lot of Italian people and families who live there. A lot of Italian businesses are owned there. And when you think about it, an area like Little Italy in Manhattan or Arthur Avenue in the Bronx, which is a beautiful Little Italy section, and many others in New York, Morris Park and other areas where there's a lot of Italian businesses. Oftentimes, even if the Italians have left the residence, maybe they needed a bigger house, they needed a bigger, they had kids and family,
Right.
a two-bedroom or one-bedroom apartment. It's hard to raise them in that, but their businesses are there. De Palo is still there, Italian-owned. Gatto Azzurro is still there, Italian-owned. Ernie Rossi, E. Rossi and Company is still there, Italian-owned, and many others. And I know most of the owners. And having been there, and I had relatives, grandparents living on Mulberry Street. So, it's all really keep the candle burning, and or I say make it a blowtorch.
Yeah, I mean, history never dies, right? Look at the Colosseum. We don't just not go learn about the Colosseum because they're not playing there anymore. It's history. We spoke, we were listened to. Now, this year is the 100th anniversary of the San Gennaro Festival, right? 100 years.
Yes,
Talk to me a little bit about that I know you're going to be performing at. That's very exciting. It's going to be a
it
big
really
thing.
is.
Go ahead.
No, it is. It's the biggest Italian feast in the United States. Literally, people who grew up in Little Italy 70 years ago come back. They always say, well, there's not a big population of Italians in Little Italy. Come back from September
Oh,
14th
yeah.
to the 28th, because there's about 20 or 30,000 walking the streets. And that's like I said, it's a beacon. It keeps our light going. So that's going to be really big. I don't know. I know they're doing some big things. They still have Italian bands that march up the street of what they call festival bands playing like a parade. There's going to be a lot of activities. There's an opera night. I do
Mm,
my Italian American night. I play songs from like famous Italian songs from the 50s, like That's Amore,
mm.
Quando, and I play even some Broadway tunes and some fun tunes like Papa Loves Mambo on mandolin. And I don't sing, I just play instrumentally, but I kind of treat it like it's a voice. When I play, people say it sounds like you're singing through the mandolin. I am. I voice it that
Mm.
way because I have a terrible singing voice. Now, my father, who was a great big band leader, Doc Anello, and sang unbelievably well, has many CDs out. And my daughter, who's an opera singer and a jazz and cabaret singer, has an unbelievable voice. If I sang, I'd clear the room. But that mandolin is my voice. So one of my albums, I have several CDs out under Johnny Mandolin. One of my CDs is called La Voce Mia, which in Italian means my voice. And the name Johnny Mandolin, actually, when I was a kid growing up in an Italian neighborhood, there were a lot of Johnnies. Johnny roast beef, Johnny bag of donuts, whoever. So they would say, which Johnny? And they said, Johnny Mandolin, the kid with the mandolin. So that's how I became. And that name stuck with me for many, many years and still does. And there's a lot of stores and a lot of restaurants in Italian American, I'm sorry, in Little Italy. If you go there and you say, oh, do you know John Anello? They go, I don't know. Do you know Johnny Mandolin? Oh, Mandolin, his picture's on the wall. So it's just a moniker that's stuck with me. And I promote it. I love it. I do my own show on Italian American radio called the Johnny Mandolin Show. But like I said, we have great, great performers. A gentleman you've interviewed who is a wonderful musician, Stephen Pishner, was has his own show now on Italian American radio. We have a beautiful girl, Danielle Travali. She has Danielle's Living Room, and she does an unbelievable radio show. And Italian American radio is free. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to subscribe. It goes out all over the United States and all over the world. So we're getting a lot of listeners from other countries because Italian American radio is free in America, but in foreign countries you got to pay for it. But Italian American radio is free. They just click on the link, ItalianAmericanRadio.com. Like I said, it's not a podcast, it's a radio station. And so that's really the fun of it.
It's so exciting. Tell me some of the places where you perform live currently,
Okay.
and particularly in Little Italy or anywhere else, because that's exciting. I mean, you're quite an accomplished musician. You really
Thank you.
are. And I
Yeah.
love the fact, by the way, that you were Johnny Mandolin as a kid, because I know I read that at the age of 6 years old, that was your thing. You picked it up, and that was, you were forever Johnny Mandolin. And by
Pretty
that, I mean,
much.
you picked up the mandolin, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about where you perform, how people can find you.
Sure. Well, johnnymandolin.com is my website, and that's the best way to kind of see what's going on, see the CDs, and see what's happening. So I've been doing a lot of performing. Now I'm currently in Southern California, and I just did two concerts for the most wonderful place in LA. It's called the Italian American Museum of Los Angeles. It's on Main Street, just outside of Union Station, one block from Alvera Street. And I did a concert there, an indoor concert, and then I did an outdoor concert. And that's a wonderful place. They just did a wonderful exhibition of Italian American food and its roots. So I am performing there, and I do perform there. The next big one is going to be the San Gennaro Feast in September, followed by there's a wonderful group, the Petrosino Foundation. Now, those of you who know your Italian Little Italy history, Joseph Petrosino was the first detective on the New York Police Department in New York who was Italian American. And he actually wrote the book on how a detective should work. And he kicked the Black Hand out of Little Italy. And they eventually murdered him. But he was the
Oh,
one, Joseph Petrosino, in at the turn of the century, last century, who who basically formed an Italian squad and got rid of the Black Hand, the pre-mafia, and and so the Petrosino Association has a big fundraiser they do every year. Many great people, a lot of dignitaries. Sometimes the governor comes, the mayor, whoever. And I'm performing there, and that's October the I believe it's October 15th. And then the other big news, every year we have a wonderful parade right up Fifth Avenue, the Columbus Day Parade, which is the biggest Italian American parade in the United States. And this year I'll be acting on camera for ABC TV, who does the live telecast, and I'll be doing cameos and shots, playing Italian, playing mandolin all around the parade, which is just a wonderful parade. I believe ABC TV will be telecasting it, as well as over 1 million people being there live.
now all of this talk about Little Italy being omitted from the map of immigrants in New York has shed a lot of light on Little Italy in New York. What do you think this will do for Little Italy in New York, not just today, but in the future?
Well, like you said, hopefully it will remind people that it's there. A lot of people know it's there, but haven't gone down. And it was interesting. Everybody would go down there several years ago, and then as they started opening new places further up in the island of Manhattan, the Hudson Yards opened, and then this opened and that opened. People said, "Oh no, I'm not going to go all the way down there." But as
Mm,
people go down, they say, "Boy, I remember this. Boy, this was a great experience."
yeah,
And so, yes, I think that will happen. I think more and more it did two things. It put a spotlight on Little Italy, and it was like a wake-up call and a solidification of Italian Americans in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and all around California, Florida, who said, "Wait a minute, that's not right. That's not fair." And I think it will bring them back to it, and the Little Italy, hopefully, again, not just because you're going to a restaurant there, but because of what it was,
yeah.
and what it launched, and the Italian Americans who came with nothing, with a suitcase, and built careers and companies and education and colleges and lifestyles, and most important, families.
Yeah, no, you're very, it's very true. And most important, families. We are a tight-knit group of people. We take care of our own. And I'm very proud of that. I really am. And there's another thing also that sometimes gets overlooked. Italians are very big into science and technology. The university over there in Bari produces some of the most terrific scientists that
Mhm.
are actually brought here to work at many of the American companies. And all the way around, whether it's food, whether it's culture and art, whether it's science or community, we've kind of got it all. So we can't
Absolutely.
erase that. We can't
No, and
erase
it
that.
shows up. It shows up in many cultures and many places. It's funny because I grew up on the East Coast, but I live bi-coastally, but I'm a lot in Southern California. And I met some friends somewhere who were born and raised in California, but they were Italian. And they were asking me about being back east because again, there's big Italian neighborhoods in New York, although some of them are getting smaller, but there's big that aren't here anymore, or not so much. Now, San Diego has one, North Beach and San Francisco has one. LA used to have a big one, San Pedro, but they were asking me, well, tell me about the culture and what it's like to be in an Italian neighborhood. And I was telling them, but I went over to their house for dinner, and I'll tell you what, it was like being in my house. There was red wine on the table in a basket, and there was
Yeah.
pasta. There was a beautiful antipasto with a prosciutto and meloni, and there was a formaggio cheese, and then we were talking about, and in the background we heard Jerry Vale playing, music.
Mm.
So it's like even though they grew up in a different neighborhood and they grew up from their Italian, it was like it was like being in my house, and that's what it's like. You come over on a Sunday. All I can say is two things. Come over hungry, and if you leave hungry, that's your fault. There's a
I
lot of
love
food.
that. You're like me. You're like me, by the way. We're from back east, but work took us here to the West Coast. And same with me. I go back and forth all the time. Much of my family, just about all my family, is back there in New York, New Jersey, Florida. And then I know, much of my family in Italy because we collect there as well. So I'm sort of the rogue Italian in my family who ended up here. I miss it there. I miss my big family there. I really do, which is why I go back often enough. Um, Anything else you'd like to add about anything about yourself, about your work,
Sure.
about you? Now that the tables have turned and I've interviewed you.
Yes. Well, yeah. Please go to johnnymandolin.com and check out the music and my career there. You can check out ItalianAmericanRadio.com, which you can go on anytime. And like I said, it's like getting in your car and turning on the radio. You go to ItalianAmericanRadio.com and click Listen Live. The radio's on.
Right
And
there.
right there. And I'm so thankful for people like you, Deborah, because I mean, you're taking the flame and carrying it on. And like I said, this is really my first time on video, other than some spot man on the street interviews. And I'm thrilled because I'm usually on the radio, so it's nice to have. It's nice to see you and carry on. And of course, any help I can be with Italian American radio, any help I can be with music, or anything else, along the way, holler out, give me a call.
I will. I absolutely will. I also wanted to give a shout out to Mariana Gatto. You mentioned her and her museum. We were there that night when you were there.
We
It's a
missed each
terrific.
other.
We miss each other. We miss talking to each other. But her exhibit is Mangia, and it's at the Italian American Museum downtown. It's terrific, and she does a wonderful job. And I wanted to mention that before
Yeah.
we signed off here.
And she's
So
got a great book. Mariana Gatto has a wonderful book about Italians in Los Angeles, and she's great. And also Francesca, who helps out there, is
oh,
wonderful.
terrific,
Beautiful
terrific.
people. If you haven't been to that museum, make it a point to go. And yes, Mariana's great. And I want to say also it's like everybody celebrate your Italian heritage, whether it was 50, 60, 80 years in the past, or you still get together with your nonno and nonna and your mom and your dad and still have pasta and have your kids celebrate it. Learn the customs if you don't, and if you do, revive them because we need to keep the flame burning like a blowtorch.
We do. Thank you so much, Johnny Mandolin Anello.
Grazie.
One absolutely wonderful to talk to. Italian American Radio. Look him up. He's going to be at the San Gennaro Festival in New York, which is so huge. I remember going to that as a kid. And my favorite was always the Zeppolas there. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
love them. And I can't wait to go get some more when I go back there. Nobody makes a Zeppola the way they do in New York at that
Gotta have
festival.
a
I have to
Zeppelin.
say. I have
Gotta
to
have.
say. So thank you very much for joining us. You're really such a delight. And I
Thank you.
appreciate your insight as well into what happened in terms of the map and getting us all back on the map in New York. So that's
Absolutely.
a terrific accomplishment that we all achieved.
Well, thank you
Uh,
so much.
Absolutely. And everybody, you can find my interview with Johnny on our Little Italy podcast and Deborah Cobelt live on YouTube, on Facebook. We're going to cut some promos. We'll put them all over Instagram. You can also find us as an audio podcast as well. So just put in Little Italy podcast or Deborah Cobelt live and you'll find us. Appreciate you all being here. Please tell your friends as well. And thanks again to Johnny. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Deborah. Vediamo. Thank you.